Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 2 of the podcast series for Strange Realms. We're going to be talking about secret government experiments, research, just anything in that broad general topic.
Shady wrongdoings.
Yeah, just it's a good way to highlight. It's a good primer, I guess, or primer, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the term is. For just showcasing like how much stuff is going on behind the scenes that you're not even aware of
For decades.
Decades. And B, just showing how little a lot of these people, institutions, the people behind these experiments, the little regard they have in some cases of, in some of these experiments, how little regard they have for human life and just, human rights, basically. It gives you a good look into their mindset, basically.
Right. It's and all of this is like, I guess, unclassified. You can go look it up, do your own research on it. We always encourage you to, just because we're telling it to you and we told you we found it, go do your own research on everything,
Yeah.
Anything you hear about from people, just don't take it off of us or YouTube, other YouTube videos, or Twitter, or Facebook,
We're just introducing it to you guys.
Tip of the iceberg.
If you like what we're talking about or you think it sounds interesting, please look it up yourself. Look into it yourself. If we have a mission statement at all, that's really what it is, man.
Yeah.
Again, not telling you what to think, but to think.
Yeah.
Use your brain.
Thank you for thinking.
Be aware, Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what was the first one we were going to talk about?
We got the Tuskegee Experiments.
Yeah, which was like a 30-year long experiment, basically.
It was, the 1932 to 1969. So it's not like this is, you think of this. People think of the 60s and. Any time before 1950s, 40s, that's forever ago. It's really not that long ago. People that are still alive today that were alive during this time period.
My parents, both my parents were alive, and this is going on. It's a pretty well-known experiment or study, is what they called it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a study. It was severely on the side of violation of human rights, and just
most definitely.
It was so unethical. But yeah, like you said, it started in 1939.
32.
32.
I think that's what it said.
It was basically what they said. It happened in Macon County, Alabama, and roughly it was, I would say, 600 people. That's what I'm seeing here, and it was primarily on the African American men in Macon County, Alabama, and it was the goal. They didn't tell the people that were the subjects of the experiment what it really was, but for their goal was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis. Basically,
let it run rampant and see what happens.
Yeah, that's that right there was just the first part of it that was just super wrong. But they basically told the subjects, these men, and it eventually evolved into women and children, because a lot of the people that they tried to get to come forward and participate in the study. Again, I say study lightly. It wasn't a study, but I guess it was from an objective viewpoint. But a lot of them were skeptical about doing it, because at that time segregation and civil rights for African Americans was still way subpar, and they thought they were going to get enlisted into the military and stuff like that. They thought it was a ruse, which rightfully so.
Right.
And they eventually branched out into women and children, but initially it was just for men. And they told the subjects that they were receiving treatment for bad blood. And it wasn't, obviously bad blood. Well, like, I don't even know what that means. Like,
Right? How do you even like?
hey man, you got bad
You
blood.
got bad blood.
Let me just inject you full of mercury. That'll fix it. Which is what they used back in like this, 1600s to treat syphilis.
Yeah, mercury.
Yeah. Which incredibly painful. By the way, we got a cat running around here, so just ignore the background noise. So they, and this was during the time that they thought that they knew that, even then they knew that penicillin successfully treated syphilis. And, obviously they didn't tell them that or, use that. They just gave them like, let me see, it was...
So I mean, like, do they... This bad blood thing they're doing, you got bad blood coming, take this cure for it or whatever they're doing. Is that are they injecting them with syphilis at that point? Like,
see, I don't know. I don't know.
Don't know exactly.
Like, I mean, because they were given, like, it's almost kind of like, it reminds me of how they would give like lice-infested blankets to like the Native Americans back in the day, and they would do all this, stuff like that. And I'm not really sure. It says something about. Let me find the actual stuff that they gave them. It was stuff that wasn't going to get rid of syphilis. It was just basically like...
placebo.
Yeah, basically. And this went on for a good, like I said, 30 years, and the first 10 of it... let me see... See, and they thought that, again, this is another, like, just a really bad way to look at people. But they said they thought that the African-American community, or these men, were extremely prone to sexually transmitted infection. Like, they thought it was a genetic thing, like that this particular ethnicity would be more susceptible to STDs and stuff, which is, we know now, is definitely not the case.
Yeah, right. It's
they were convinced that they couldn't be convinced to get treatment for it, so they justified it that way, by saying that, well, they wouldn't have asked for help anyways, and let me see. They did, they received physical examinations, they got x-rays, spinal taps, and when they died, they autopsied them and did research with that. And like I was saying earlier, the men thought they were being recruited for the military, and to kind of get them to cooperate and to I guess, seem transparent. Like I said, they started examining women and children. They were, let me see. They gave them ineffective medicines like ointments or capsules with 2 small doses of neoarsphenamine or mercury to basically, give them the illusion that they were being treated for something when really they were just not concerned, like we said, about treating it at all. They were just basically watching the disease run rampant, and they were just, documenting the results, basically.
Right.
And this went on. Eventually, some of them caught on to it. They stopped attending the appointments. And they just did all kinds of stuff to, I guess, try to coerce them into participating, basically.
Rats.
Yeah, basically. And just, lab rats. And then eventually it became, clear that the study's true nature became clear, and they eventually, I guess, stopped them from, they prevented their participants from seeking treatment. And I guess it kind of, came more to light and stuff like that. And that's kind of when it, fell apart. It's crazy too, because it says by 1947, penicillin had become the standard treatment for syphilis. And I guess they thought they were getting penicillin, but they obviously were not.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this thing went all the way.
And this was funded by the U.S.
Yeah,
Public Health Service.
U.S. Public Health Service.
And the
Tuskegee Institute, which, interestingly enough, was funded by Booker T. Washington. Like, maybe there's a correlation there or not, but it's like, I don't know.
It's a little odd.
Yeah.
A little bit odd. It'd be
It's like,
something to look into, you know.
Yeah,
what
for
I mean?
sure.
That might be something that we dive a little deeper on.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
I mean, that just shows you that just because, like, I feel like a lot of institutions use some kind of, like, moral or ethically based front, if you will.
Yeah, right.
To be like, oh, yeah, well, you know, this was started by this, you know, an African-American man, so obviously it's trustworthy. You know, you're part of that same ethnicity, so, you know, come on in, like, just that type of stuff.
That sounds a lot like, you know, the crack epidemic, and they flooded Harlem with the heroin and with, like, the 70s and all that shit, dude.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much. And that was Freeway Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, that's a whole different topic, but
it's
just, this is like, you know, something they did back, you know, like I said, this was before civil rights had advanced.
This was more medical.
Yeah.
You know, on the medical side of things.
It wasn't just a giant front to make money, basically, like was. Yeah. But I guess a whistleblower, Peter Buxton, he leaked about the study to the New York Times, and the paper published it on the front page in 1972. And then the study finally ended. And at this time, only 74 of the test subjects were still alive out of 600. 128, maybe it wasn't 600, 128 patients have died of syphilis or its complications. 40 of their wives had been infected, and 19 of their children had acquired congenital syphilis.
Jeez, I was wondering if it was one of those that's like AIDS and herpes and shit that you can pass it through birth.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it was.
Fucking nuts, dude.
They actually, the NAACP launched a class action lawsuit 2 years later for $10 million, which it's just, I mean, that's not even enough. Like, I mean, that's...
No,
it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, we've already got our info. We don't care. Here's $10 million.
I understand when people, like, sue for like big amounts of money like that, but it's like...
I mean, I guess back then that was more money than what's $10 million is today.
But on some of this shit, though, like, you can't put a dollar price on that, bro.
That's 30 years of human suffering.
Yeah, dude, you ruin generations of families with that. Like, that's... You can't put a dollar amount on that kind of shit.
Pretty much. Let's see. What was the next one was...
the Montauk Project.
Yeah.
Starting with the
Philadelphia Experiments / the Montauk Project, which I like talking about because Stranger Things, the show, is based off of the Montauk Project.
Everybody knows Stranger Things.
Yeah.
You
know? So that was basically the Philadelphia Experiment was, let me see, it was in the 1948. It was basically this theory. It was a theory that Albert Einstein, came up with, called unified field theory, and it was the idea that electromagnetism and gravity had more to do with each other, were more unified than what they thought. They had more of an effect on each other. And
that reminds me of something I heard on Tinfoil. They were talking about, I want to look into a lot. I'm sorry to get sidetracked. But the, what is it? It's like electromagnetic universe, basically.
Yeah, the electromagnetic universe theory, how plasma is like the driving force between planetary bodies, and that's what causes most change. Which is really interesting, man. I think there's a lot of meat and potatoes to that.
That one guy was talking about, like, plasma field energy, basically. It
there's three different types and stuff. Yeah. And what we think of dark matter and dark energy and stuff that we know is there and it's affecting other stuff, but we can't quantify it or it's not tangible. You know, they makes a lot of it, fills in a lot of the blanks, so to speak. But the Philadelphia experiment was in 1943. There was a ship called the USS. It was like a battleship, a cannon class destroyer is what they called it. It was an attempt to cloak it and make it invisible.
Like the X-Men.
Yeah, basically, I mean, that's kind of like just a good way to put it, yeah. And so it was an attempt to do that, to cloak a battleship. And what happened, and there's all kinds of stuff with it, man. We really need to do a series just on the Montauk Experiments, or the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia Experiments, which was called Project Rainbow.
Yeah.
But it's just known as the Philadelphia Experiment. It was using that unified field theory basically as a way to cloak, to use electromagnetic waves and to distort the air to where you couldn't see something.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, a lot of people think, oh, there's no, like, it's pretty out there. But
I mean, they got this thing now that you can get. It's like it reminds me of the cloak from Harry Potter. It's like this reflective.
Yeah, it's Japanese. It's got like, dude, I saw that. And like nuts. You could literally, I'm telling you guys, okay, I'm glad he brought this up. Like the guy put it on, he's standing there and there's like this big glass, like this wall, like of windows behind, like you can see like there's cars in the street behind it on the outside. And this dude is standing there and he puts this cloak on and it's electrically charged. It's got it's got like nanofilaments in it. And
nanotech, that's crazy too. But.
He puts it on and they activate it basically, and you can see through him and see the street behind him and the cars passing down the street through this dude.
Like he's not even there.
Yeah, I mean he was translucent. Like you could still see the silhouette of him a little bit. Like when he moved, like the fabric would shift a little bit. But that's just a small scale version of what this was. This was supposed to cloak an entire battleship.
Right, yeah, something that's gigantic.
Because this was basically for the purposes of World War II. But yeah, it would render the ship invisible to both radar and it was also for radar too. It's supposed to completely cloak it, like undetectable. And there's so many like different little rabbit holes and like avenues that this goes down. And that they dismissed it as it even being a real thing, that they ever even tried it. But there's just a lot of stuff that's come forward that, really gives it credibility, just in my opinion. Let's see. It's actually not one event. Like it wasn't one experience. It was two. They had two different experiments. The first, like I said, it occurred in 1943, and I'm not really sure about the tiny little nuts and bolts parts of it, but it vanished literally into thin air, supposedly. And moments later, the ship reappeared in its spot, like just completely as it was. And according to witnesses who claimed to have seen it happen, the ship was only gone moments, like a couple blinks, and there it was. And they don't know what happened to it. Where did it go? Like, it didn't just go invisible. Like it was not there. Like it wasn't in the water.
Yeah, right.
Like the water was not displaced. It just, it teleported basically.
Wormhole or something.
Yeah. And, that's where it gets into basically, it supposedly or allegedly, like how people say, it disappeared and it went from Philadelphia, where it was in the shipyard there, and it was seen 300 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia. So it went from Philadelphia, the port, and just teleported to Norfolk, Virginia, and then teleported back.
Right.
And it's crazy because not only did they figure out, like, hey, we made this invisible, which, I mean, I guess they didn't really make it invisible. They just teleported the whole ship.
Right.
But they figured out how to move a ship, too, like just completely teleport it. And there was all these crazy side effects with it. Like the sailors that were on the ship, a couple of them just completely disappeared, which is, I'll get into that in a second. That's the craziest part about the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts.
It actually it was supposedly extremely damaging to the mind. Like it made some of them go crazy. They went insane. And then some of them were literally fused into the hull of the ship. Like parts of their arms were sticking, like, you know, like this is their hand was right here where I'm holding onto it was like the wall. Their hand was just sticking out of the wall. They were fused into the ship.
Han Solo.
Yes, like like in so many words, like
Yeah.
they were, you know, part of the ship basically, like some Pirates of the Caribbean Davy Jones crap, part of the ship.
I think they did that on a Doctor Who episode.
Yeah,
On one of their episodes, they did that, and that happened to the people on the ship or whatever.
that's probably a play off that then.
No, I wouldn't doubt it.
That's
dude.
another really good show, man.
Oh yeah.
And then some of them became super sick. Some, like I said, some of them just lost their minds and they just never came back. And so I guess they kind of abandoned that. But as far as trying to, you know, the simple act of, well, I guess I say simple act, but that's not of cloaking a ship. But they realized that there was so much more they could do with it. And it really branched off into the Montauk Project because there's this is what I was talking about earlier, like some of the crew just disappearing.
Yeah.
There's this one guy, Al Bielek, who's also known as Ed Cameron. He was with his brother Duncan, and they were like in that area. Or no, they weren't. Hold on. I guess he was a part of the crew. Yeah,
So I feel like when you're talking about, or while you're reading that, but I feel like a lot of this, or a lot of like experiments and things in general, it's like we talked about before, it's like once you discover part of this, it branches off into so many different other things, and like all of, like, it starts at this one place and then it starts all these other projects because of things they've discovered.
yeah. I mean, that's
know,
kind of the premise of
between-
science. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, like it's, you find one thing and that's like, well, if we can do this or it affects it this way, we can use it for this.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of like the scientific method, or not, that's not the scientific method, but it's just the nature of science and research.
Discovery.
Yeah. And so this guy, apparently, like some of the crew got teleported to the year 2137. And then, I don't know, like it's hard to follow, but they returned, they were there for like 2 years and then they got returned to 1983. And this guy says he was part of the Montauk Project, which is it's just part of this, you know, particular topic too.
Yeah, right.
There was something too about the naval log, like the logs for the ship. They were like, it didn't account for the time that it wasn't there and all this other stuff. Like somebody, how they basically faked the logs, and there was some kind of indiscrepancy with that. Let's see. But yeah, so I guess they figured out that, you know, hey, not only can we make stuff invisible, or what we thought was invisible, but we teleported, you know, a whole ship to a certain location and back.
Yeah, right.
And they didn't. They didn't make it invisible. They like I said, teleported it.
They discovered something else.
Yeah, just completely
in search of.
Basically.
In search of one thing, they found another.
Mm-hmm. And then they thought, you know, well, what can we do with this? And so then they did what was called the Montauk Project, which was based in Montauk, New York. It was at the the
Montauk Project is like,
that's what the Stranger Things is based off of.
It's super popular anyway in itself, just because of Stranger Things, and then it's like we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but it's kind of up there with MK Ultra as far as people knowing about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's mainstream, because not everybody, it's not mainstream the way certain music is mainstream.
Yeah, but it's not mainstream.
Yeah, right.
And Stranger Things is kind of like, it's a combination of a lot of different like experiments and stuff like that. Like the parallel universes. It's kind of, it just throws a lot of stuff together. So it's not really like, I guess you wouldn't say it's completely based off the Montauk Project, but it's based off of certain things that happened in the Montauk Project.
Right, I thought it had a big influence. Maybe season 1.
Yeah, as far as like the
more influenced by that.
Yeah. Well, see the whole monster part of it, like the, I can't remember what it's called in the show. The mind flare.
Yeah.
So that was based off of research that they did in the Montauk Project, where they figured out using electromagnetic waves. They were like, they had this chair, and this gets into a lot of other topics we're going to talk about too, like remote viewing and stuff like that. They would take people who were considered to be psychic, who thought they, who had quote unquote psychic abilities, which I believe are a real thing. It's just, I say quote unquote because, I can't 100% say that that's, but yeah, it was in Montauk was a town in New York, and there was like this old, I want to say it was a U.S. Air Force base, and it was going to be decommissioned. And it had like a bunch of old equipment and stuff, and like it was a really small town. Never made the news, you know what I'm saying? It was perfect for that type of thing.
Right.
And what they did, one of the experiments, they would sit a subject in a chair in a specified location, and they would focus this huge radar dish at that direction, and begin, I guess, shooting gigawatts of power and electromagnetic waves at this person. And by manipulating the amperage of the power used in the frequency of the waves, they were able to make people do things that they wanted them to do. Like it was literal mind control.
Yeah. And I've heard of this, like, on a larger scale, there's people talk about them doing it to us now, which is, in my opinion, believable. Where they, they just shoot, it's all frequency.
Yeah.
And they shoot low frequency bullshit at you, and it's kind of how they social condition.
Yeah. Oh, there was this thing called I think it was
messages or whatever.
A military. It was like a project called. It was a device they called the Voice of God.
Yeah.
And it basically was like this huge dish, and they could like take somebody's voice and basically like it was like ventriloquism, where you can throw your voice, but it was over long distances, and it's supposedly supposed to be like you would seriously be hearing things in your head, and you thought it like, was God or, some kind of demon or who knows, but it was literally just somebody using like this device basically to throw their voice over a long, long distance. And it blows my mind. But this is, kind of ties into what they were doing here. And then they were like, well, if we can do that, what else can we do with this?
No, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, not only can we make people do what they want, but, and then they had like, another part of it was, they were like, if we can get people to do that, they were like, I wonder what we could do to some of these people who are, psychic sensitive or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Which they, let me see. They realized at some point that the equipment that they were using for mind manipulation was also able to manipulate time. They were like, if we can manipulate somebody's mind, maybe we can manipulate time with it. I guess it's a pretty broad jump, but I don't know.
Well, if you think of, because everyone perceives time differently.
Yeah.
And like the last hour of work is always much slower than any other hour of the day type of thing. You know what I mean?
It's I guess altering your perception.
Yeah.
There was also apparently some kind of like extensive extraterrestrial involvement that apparently they got to the point where, like I said, the people that were psychic, they had them start doing what's called remote viewing, and they basically would have them. And this was in like the Cold War, and they had figured out that the USSR was doing research into that too, like basically spying from huge distances away. Yeah. So they were like, we got to counter that.
Ultimate espionage.
Yeah, I mean, not even, there's no effort other than, what goes into, it's the ultimate espionage, basically, like why plant a spy.
You can literally be the fly on the wall.
Yeah, and have your sleeper agent or whatever, when you could just literally just see what they're doing in your head. They basically got into remote viewing, and some story about how this guy was remote viewing. Like, they would have them focus on certain objects. Like they started small. Like they had them remote view what was in another room and stuff like that. And what's really good about Stranger Things is they show the sensory deprivation tank, that tank of water that they put 11 in, and it kind of like dulls your other senses. You can't feel. There's no not really a lot of sound. So really, all you have is your mind and your thought, that, and it kind of dulls your other senses, and it's less distractions. Basically, like filters out a lot of stuff, and they got to the point where this guy was supposedly I guess is where they got the monster from Stranger Things, but it was some kind of like. This guy was remote viewing, and he kept seeing this like Bigfoot type of thing that had like these really like sharp teeth. I don't know what it was. Obviously, like this is all alleged, but like he kept seeing it, and I guess they turned the amplitude up. Like they supposedly, like I said, this is all the word of a couple people, but I mean these couple people have never changed their story. They said the same thing over and over. They could be lying. I don't know. Me personally, I kind of believe it more than I disbelieve it. But anyway, he was remote viewing this thing, and they turned the amplitude on this chair and this the waves that they were bombarding him with, and it literally brought that whatever that thing was, like it appeared in the base, like in the place that they were. And like went on a rampage for like 5 minutes.
Right, and manifested.
And then they shut the machine off, and it, just vanished. And I'm pretty sure that's where they got the whole premise for the mind flare and the parallel universes and dimensions and stuff like that.
Because it's all basically their manifestation of their D&D game, pretty much. So
But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's way too much for us to cover. In just this podcast, because
it has to be its own thing.
There's so much stuff to it. It's just like there's it goes into MK Ultra. It goes into, like I said, remote viewing a lot.
And all that kind of stuff.
Time
like that
travel.
Too. It gets into like real magic and the occult.
Yeah.
And it's that's on the deeper end of it. Like all this kind of stuff is kind of connected to all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
In a way, so it's all gonna get a lot.
Mm-hmm. A lot weirder and a lot stranger for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. What was the other one that we got? What was the next one?
Paperclip.
Okay, yeah, Paperclip.
That's a good one too.
So Paperclip was the code name under which the U.S. intelligence and military services, after the Nazis got defeated in World War II, and I guess this isn't an experiment or research per se, but it just shows you, it's a good look into how
it's just more government corruption.
Yeah.
Something that I felt like was kept quiet, like these other like projects and experiments, but it's The
it
other,
just
the
goes
other
to
ones
show you
were
how,
more like health based.
yeah,
you know.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess it is about research because, like, I mean, NASA was basically started from, like, Werner Von Braun, who was, you know, the guy who developed the V1 and the V2 missile platforms, rockets,
Yeah.
and they were on the verge of doing that in you know, Nazi Germany. He was brought over, and that's literally where you got NASA from. They invented Velcro. They invented powdered orange drink like Tang and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. And
A lot of your inventions and stuff that come out in the 70s.
yeah, it says
60s and 70s.
particular interests were scientists specializing in aerodynamics and rocketry, chemical weapons, chemical reaction technology, medicine, behavioral sciences, and you know, of the, you know, like mind control, MK. Yeah, MK Ultra. And the scientists and their families were brought into the United States, and they weren't tried for war crimes because they wanted the information.
They were given diplomacy.
Yeah. Or no, not diplomacy, amnesty.
Amnesty.
Yeah. But, which is, reminds me of this other, they had a similar thing like that happen in Japan. It was like, let me look it up. It's like Unit 377 or 337, 317. And it was this battalion in Japan. They were specifically for research. And they did all this heinous, 371, yep. And they did all this research. Like, they would tie people to like these, like, you know, wooden cross, like X's, like crosses, and like arrange them in different ways and detonate landmines and stuff in front of them.
Jesus.
To like study the effects of like which one was more detrimental. Like, if you tilt the mine this way, does it do more damage? You know, if you tilt it back this way, does it do more damage?
Right.
They would take like these little small weather balloon blimp things filled with like mustard gas and other chemical agents, fly them over small villages, detonate them above the village, and go in and do live autopsies on the people. It's all documented. Like, it's all there.
Dude.
And none of it, that guy and a lot of the key people in that battalion never got tried for war crimes because the U.S. military wanted the information.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's, Unit 731 or Unit 731. That's what it was. It was a covert biological and they just did like biological weapons and chemical warfare, and it was based in the largest city of Japan. No, the largest city in the Japanese state in northeast. Like, I guess they had active branches in China and Southeast Asia, and they just, like I said, they would go in and do stuff like that, and nobody ever got tried. But Operation Paperclip, going back to that, not to get too distracted, there was like 500 of them.
Yeah.
And
yet again, these are, like we talked about earlier, people that are still alive today, and not to say that they're bad, I guess.
not all of them, maybe, like, you know, and I think that's.
And I understand it. It's like some of the stuff that they've discovered through terrible, terrible experiments are.
Maybe goes on to help people.
Yeah, but
the information
I mean,
gets used in a useful way
yeah.
or beneficial way, but
you can't forget that these people are, you know, there's people that are still alive, and there are people that are in charge and that are in these fields today that were mentored by these people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I don't know, man.
Well, that goes back to also, have you heard of the term boys in Brazil?
Yeah.
About how a lot of them fled to Argentina and all this other stuff.
And of course, there's the whole, you know, I don't know if you can say his name on YouTube, honestly, but I think we all know who I'm talking about, Mr. Nazi himself. That he went to Argentina or somewhere down in Brazil, and he's alive today.
Or he has like his son and his family are there.
There's there and
we'll call him Adolf.
Adolf. Which, I mean, there's like a million videos.
I think you can say his name on YouTube.
I'm
You can
pretty
say
sure.
Adolf.
Yeah.
People know who Hitler was, bro.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is, though.
Hey, we're just not trying to get flagged.
Yeah.
Because they'd be crazy with that. They keep updating their terms. I don't even want to get into it.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 500 of them. A lot of them went, like I said, into NASA. This in turn led to the foundation of NASA and the U.S. ICBM program, which is the Intercontinental Ballistic Missiles. So, like, Nazi scientists, the same people, a lot of these people who were privy and present for all that atrocious stuff they were doing in those camps are the same people that came over and founded a lot of the infrastructure of our military,
So I'm saying it's
space
scary
exploration.
that they're still around and their teachings are still prevalent in our science and shit today.
I mean, it's like, I guess science itself is unbiased. Like, it's not good or evil. It's just how you use it. You know what I'm saying?
So
But
this is the thing. Science is unbiased, and you can't argue with it whether you like the results or not. The scientist.
yeah, probably
they-
has an agenda,
yeah.
or they've got stuff they don't like or didn't like.
That's when it's like,
And it's like, but like, yes, they discovered stuff, and the info itself is unbiased. But what were they trying to? Why were they researching that, and why were they looking into it? What
Right.
was the use for it?
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And you saw what they did in the, at that time. It's like I doubt they were up to, benevolent things. I just don't think it's
right.
something that was going to be used for the greater good, if anything. But they let's see. There was another thing I wanted to talk about with Operation Paperclip. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, MK Ultra. Apparently, and I said this is all like, alleged and hearsay, or, somebody said this and it was an insider whistleblower or whatever.
Right.
They were basically looking into behavioral sciences and social conditioning in Nazi Germany, and because it's easier to get people to enslave themselves and trick them into doing what you want than forcing them to do it and spending all that manpower and resources, and it's less confrontational. There's no resistance because they're
Right.
doing it themselves.
Sigil magic.
Yeah,
Like we were yeah.
basically. And
Like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's freaking terrible. You should stop us. But if you don't,
it's on you.
yep, you
We're going to do it anyway.
Yep.
Uh,
And you welcomed us to do so.
yeah, basically. And then, they go into, which is, I guess, a good topic for us to go into would be MK. Everybody knows what MK Ultra was, and I think a lot of...
But MK Ultra was a lot of different things.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, because people associate that with the, the acid and or LSD and stuff like that. That was just one part of it.
It was just a little,
That was kind of like a way to... It was basically like, can we use a synthetic substance like this, chemical compound, whatever, to trick the body into overclocking itself? Because initially, the LSD was... They were trying to use it to create super soldiers.
right.
Basically, like bypassing people's self-preservation.
Giving you
Instinct,
bunches of like adrenaline and
Yeah.
energy, and then we're gonna it like completely chemically bypasses like your
Self-preservation instinct.
receptors that are like, I'm tired, my feet hurt.
Or this is
blah,
going to
blah,
get me
blah.
killed, or this is a suicide
right.
mission,
Yeah,
basically. And that was just one part. I mean, it's MK literally stands for mind control.
Yeah.
And it's like we talked about in the other podcast, or the first episode. That stuff is still going on, man. Like, that was just the code name for it then.
It's like we just earlier we talked about, and we'll probably talk about it all the time. It'll probably come up a lot.
Because it's super prevalent now, man. If you
Once-
don't think they're still utilizing research that they learned from that stuff, Now
It goes with the nature of science, like we just said. It's once you discover something, it unlocks the door to something else. It doesn't mean that, okay, let's pack it up, we're done, we found out all we need. It's we found out this much. Now we know we don't know a whole lot about it. We need to know more.
Yeah,
So
we figured out how to do this, but it opened
move
up
on.
like 8 different other possibilities that we can use this for. So, you
Yeah.
know, might as well go into those. Oh, what was the guy from the guy that died from Whitest Kids? You know, Trevor Moore.
Oh yeah, dude.
There's this quote by him, man, and it's
Love that
legendary.
dude.
He was like, "What if they learned from the MK Ultra experiments that fear is a way to control the populace, and that's why we have so much mental illness and deteriorating mental health, and you know, all these issues and
dude.
conditions, and it's all this stuff, and it's just like, and they use tragedies to, you know, introduce that fear and, you know, all that stuff like that."
And that's why you see more horrifically tragic things on the news than you see good things all the time. That's why, just turn on the news, open Facebook, open Twitter, go look at a newspaper, like,
It's just people fighting.
I guarantee you it's just like horrible shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like, or
I don't know.
controversial stuff going on. It's like they want to keep you either bickering or scared. Because I feel like it's such a primal reaction from people, and it's so easy to get us to that's how they think they got to control us.
Yeah, it's keeping you in a constant state of fight or flight.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, you're not worried about big picture stuff. You're not worried about like the potential of the species, of our species, and what we could do and what we could accomplish if we just set aside all that crap and just ignored it for the most part. It just keeps people in a survival mode, and you can't focus on big picture stuff, and you can't really look who's causing it and like go after the people who are really doing who are behind the oppression.
Right.
If you're constantly worried about feeding yourself, if you're worried about how you're going to make it month to month and all this stuff like that.
And it's getting worse now.
And I'm not saying like this gets into like a hairy topic, but not every tragedy or disaster is, I would say a lot of them probably aren't engineered, but it's kind of like it's that old, it's like I don't know what you'd call it. A crisis is an opportunity.
Right, yeah.
You know, and they realize a lot of these governments and these industries, these, you know, complexes.
Executive, CEO.
Well, I mean higher than that, like people who run the military industrial complex, people who run big pharma,
Right.
all these other people. It's like, how can we take a crisis and
Capitalize
benefit,
on it.
you know, ourselves tenfold off of it?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just really what it is. And there's just so many like different things. We're kind of getting off topic, but it all goes back to MK Ultra and like what they initially were trying to do with that stuff.
MK Ultra, I feel like that kind of bled out. Like I was telling you earlier,
There's so
about,
many things.
Look up. What is it? I think Tim Leary, father of LSD. I'm pretty sure it's Tim Leary. Big dude back in the 60s and 70s. You know, in the counterculture movement and all that. Like, the more I learn about stuff and read about stuff, like, I feel like he might have been like a psyop, because a lot of people look at him back then as like this savior type of person, because he brought this great psychedelic to the masses and to the public, which, I mean,
if it opens people's minds, then awesome, or if it gives them another perspective.
It can be used as a medicine or whatever.
Maybe
you
not
wanna call
LSD,
it.
I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, like, if I was to think about something like a psychedelic that I was going to use for therapy, the LSD would be the last one that I would be like, yeah,
But
I'm going to go do that.
It depends on dosage and intent.
Yeah.
When you do it, you know. But I mean, yeah, I feel like, you know, if we're getting off on some other shit we're going to talk about later, like psychedelics and stuff. But I feel like, and this has been a really big topic recently, actually, in the news and stuff, because they're trying to get like mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin, yes. I can never think of it.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get it approved for like mental illnesses and shit.
You know, they use MDMA for medical stuff
And
now
that's
for
why
like
it
trauma,
came
for
around
therapy.
was for like couples counseling back in the 60s and 70s. MDMA.
But that just goes back to like what we were saying earlier with the science and the info. Like, that's unbiased. You can use it for good or bad. And this is those are examples of using it for good. And it's like, but you're not hearing about you don't. It's just there's so much stuff that's being.
It's because it hurts the pockets of big pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, for sure. It's like why would you promote something that is natural or something that's super cost effective that can improve your mental health when we can prescribe you 8 different medications that are supposed to fix the problem that are highly costly.
Right, because anybody can go out here and grow mushrooms. Me or you could go grow mushrooms. Yeah. We could heal ourselves if it was something we needed.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Like you just grow it in cow shit.
We can't go make I don't know, one of these fucking millions of medications that they got.
Yeah, Zoloft.
Yeah, we can't go press that ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like,
no, it's exactly what it is. But yeah, to get back on topic, the MK Ultra was initially, like I said, a lot of people associate it with LSD and stuff, but that was just one. It was also, let's see. And see, the thing that was messed up about MK Ultra is a lot of these people, there's a lot of, I mean, this is pretty much the premise or the usual story or scenario is the test subjects didn't know they were test subjects.
Yeah, right.
I think we talked about it also in the other episode. It was like Operation Honeypot or it was something like that. Midnight something.
Oh yeah.
Where they set up they would set up escorts in like these rooms and they would hook them. They would give them a supply of like all these drugs and mind-altering substances. Put up this 2-way glass, and the person would come in. The guy would come in. The escort would do what they do, and they would see these. They would watch the effects of this stuff on this person and be like, "How can this, how would this affect them?" A good way to really, if you like movies, a lot of people do. The Men Who Stare at Goats is a really good movie about that stuff. And that goes into remote viewing and MK Ultra. And like I said, I'm not saying that all this came from Operation Paperclip like we were talking about earlier, but they were definitely fiddling with that and they were definitely looking into that type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just really weird, in my opinion, how we have all these, I would say a good majority of these scientists who are morally questionable come in, and then all of a sudden we've got all these research programs. We've got all this, all these experiments going on.
Yeah, dude. Backed by gobs and gobs of endless money.
Yeah, of our money.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was, illegal money in there too. But yeah, it's super coincidental to me that we just have all this, unethical research taking place as soon as these guys hit in. And I'm sure that's not the only
that also goes into UFOs and all of that type of thing, which kind of goes into
what's crazy. And this is really out there stuff, but Werner Von Braun, who was one of the guys they brought over, who basically started NASA, who was one of the lead scientists and directors of NASA. Maybe he wasn't a director, but he was like the cornerstone, the foundation of it getting started. And there was some quote of him talking about how they were going to try I don't know who they were. I don't know who he's referring to. I guess the powers that be, how they would fake an alien invasion. Like that was their last card that they would play. And like I said, that's really out there stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that clip. Yeah,
but it's like, man, it's like, I don't know. It's really weird. Like, you've got the guy saying that, and then he's also he's the guy who helped start NASA, and NASA's into space exploration, and it's just like, I don't know. That's a whole different topic, but I guess which leads us, now we're talking about UFOs, we can get on the topic of Bob Lazar.
Mr. Bob.
Bob, I don't know if
before we get into Bob, and all of that good juicy stuff, if you guys are enjoying the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe,
please
share it around, go watch our other stuff. We're gonna have plenty more coming out.
Critique us,
Definitely, yeah. Be constructive.
I feel like we tend to ramble a lot, but we're learning as we go.
Yeah, and it's just fun to talk about this stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
It's fun to get other people's opinions and different viewpoints on stuff. So if there's any of these topics we've talked about up till now, or what we're gonna finish it up.
If we're way off on something, tell us. If we're spot on something, tell us.
Yeah, definitely. Feedback is always welcome. So,
and just keep in mind, and this is the last disclaimer. These podcasts are more. They're just free form. We're not really supposed to. I mean, in my opinion, it's not about just. I mean, we're talking about a particular subject, like government experiments and research and stuff like that. But we're definitely getting into. We're going to make, like I said, we've said it a million times, series on. Going in depth and way more structured and focused on particular topics. This is just us speculating, having a good time talking about it. Like what if this,
kind of throwing some stuff,
connecting
out there.
dots. Yeah, just trying to be entertaining.
Honestly, trying to get a casting a wide net to an audience and trying to see like, what do you guys like? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about? I know a lot of you can get on TikTok if you're into this kind of stuff, and you'll see a million different TikToks talking about stuff, and in an hour you can see a bunch of TikToks, but we want to get into it a little bit more than that, you know what I mean, and getting people's input and their feedback is probably the most important thing for us is trying to be content creators.
If you're gonna blast us and tell us we're dumb and we're crazy, awesome, man. I don't care what kind of feedback it is. Feedback is feedback.
Yeah, just let us know. We want the interaction. So thank you guys for watching. We're gonna get, I guess, back into it. Mr. Bob Lazar.
Yeah, Bob Lazar. He's not super well known. Like in the mainstream,
a little bit more now because he had that Netflix.
Yeah, which I don't know, that whole thing makes me like
anything that Netflix
I'm 50-50 on that. It's like I just wish that Jeremy Corbell guy wasn't. It's cool, man, because he's bringing awareness to it and he's talking about it. I know he was on Joe Rogan talking about it. Anything that brings that subject, UFO subject, to light, I'm all for.
Yeah, which they're starting. I sent you the screenshot the other day. They're opening the new UFO office at the Pentagon or whatever it is.
Which is really them just saying, hey, we've had this for 100 years, not 100 years. We've had this department for 60 years. We're just now telling you about it.
Yeah, right.
Like, get out of here.
You think we're going to do this now already? So we can get even more funding for it.
Yeah, pretty much. And control the narrative even more.
Exactly.
We can dictate
that's
what's real and what's not.
That's the biggest part of it, is them telling you, no, that's not real. We found this here. It's coming from us.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're telling you the truth.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy because there's so many good UFO sightings and videos, and like I said before, a bunch of that stuff's probably fake or CGI. I'm sure it is. I've seen a lot of fakes.
Or us,
yeah, which is a whole other topic. But it's like there's all these really, really good sightings, man. It's like it'd be really, really hard to fake some of them.
Yeah.
And it's like the one that they put up literally looks like the flare off a jet engine. And it's just sitting above a bunch of clouds. I mean, it does look like it's levitating and not really being propulsed through the air like a jet does.
Right.
But it's just super grainy, and it's never anything that's I can tell exactly what that is. I know that's us. It's not us. I don't know. But anyway, Bob Lazar was a guy who came out in the 1980s, and he if you know who George Knapp was, he had a show on Coast to Coast AM where he talked about a lot of stuff like that, and he basically came out under the code name Dennis, and because he didn't want to reveal who he was, and he basically was whistleblowing, and he said that he worked at a facility called S4, which was a sub-facility of Area 51. This is, like I said, in the 80s. Everybody knows about Area 51 now, so I feel like if they're doing anything, it ain't happening there.
No, not anymore.
But at the time, yeah. And he basically came out and said that we have alien spacecraft. We've known about alien spacecraft for, since the 50s, and we've been reverse engineering them. And, there's so many, like, touchy, like, or not touchy, but it's really hard to tell what's true and what's not.
Man,
there's a lot of stuff that makes you think like maybe he was full of it, and there's some stuff it's like maybe he's telling the truth, like. But yeah, he came out
that Alex Jones effect.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he's not like ranting and
raving,
waving guns around and on set and like Alex.
But he's been right about so much; it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, which is a whole different topic. So he came out. He did this interview, and he was talking about that. And he came on, and he eventually he revealed who he really was and all this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff about it that's like, it's really weird because he claimed to go to Caltech, which is like it's a pretty prestigious engineering, what's the word? Astrophysics, but like the whole, like basically what they do in NASA, like propulsion and like advanced energy and propulsion and stuff like that. He went to Caltech, and he said he went to MIT, and there's the weirdest thing about it, man, is so there's no record of him going to MIT. You can find him there's a little bit of evidence that he went to Caltech.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and there's interviews with him where he's definitely intelligent. He definitely knows what he's talking about. Like he's not a fake scientist, he's not just a guy that says, I'm a scientist, and I did 15 years of advanced education and all this stuff and that. Like he's definitely a scientist. He definitely knows what he's talking about. But whether the question is, people are like, I don't think because there's no record of him going to MIT. But if you look at, I think it was like a phone book. There was a phone book, a directory is what it was.
Yeah.
And his name is literally on the list of people there.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
And it's like, why was he on the directory if he never went there?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this before the podcast. Like, a lot of these advanced schools, colleges, institutes, stuff like that, a lot of those guys move on, or guys and girls, women, people. A lot of them go on to the military-industrial complex to,
big
really
secret,
advanced, yes, classified stuff, whether it's private or, corporation research or like for the government, whatever. It's all classified. It doesn't matter if it's for a corporation or for the government. They're pretty much the same thing. Yeah. And a lot of these people go on to work for stuff like that, the military-industrial complex, big energy, if you want to call it that, and they realize that, and it's like, it's kind of like, don't bite the hand that feeds you. We know, like, why would people come to our school, if they weren't trying to move on to a field like that? So it's like, I feel like those entities, the military-industrial, big energy, have a lot of pull at these schools, and I wouldn't put it past them to be able to wipe somebody's identity like that. Like, it's not that hard to wipe somebody's.
Once this person advances so far, and once they have so much information and clearance with these agencies or whoever, And it's like they go back to the school and it's like, okay, we need you to delete all record of them being here.
Yeah.
So that if they ever come out and talk about any of this, they have no credibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
basically. And here's like 10,000. Here's $10 million.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Booster,
yeah.
some booster
Oh, by
money.
the way, here's 10 mil. Yeah, that type of thing. But so yeah, there's not concrete. When I say concrete, like you can go look at the yearbook and all that stuff, like whatever.
Yeah, right.
But there's places that he pops up, and he did work. There was this. It was like this lab in New Mexico that he worked at. Maybe that was what it was. That's what it was. There was this lab. It was like it's in New Mexico. It's like this. They do like advanced energy. They do all this like cutting edge research, and there was no record of him working there, but he's on the directory. That's what it was.
Mm.
So he was looking into like advanced energy and like propulsion and all that stuff like that. And so he came out and was like, yeah, they're reverse engineering like UFOs. They've got like 8 of them there, and all this stuff. And of course, people were just like, ain't no way. But
full of shit.
At the same time, it's like he was the thing that kills me, man, is in 1980. He was talking about it was called Element 115, and my computer just froze up.
Noise.
Oh no, there we go. I'm sorry, folks. Let me close a couple of these tabs so my laptop can keep up. It's called Untitled Element 115. It's on the periodic table. I think it was discovered. Let me see. It was discovered. I need a new computer, man. Trying to figure out when it was discovered. Pop-up ads. Anyways, the premise was,
Gotta love 'em.
yeah, he was talking about this Element 115 in 1980 something. 1980, and it had been theorized that it could exist. Like there was some kind of stuff, I guess, in the 90s about how it was in the public realm. They were talking about how it was theoretically possible to synthesize this element, that it maybe could be synthesized. Like they thought maybe it could exist. It was discovered in 2010, is what this says. 2010, and this guy was talking about it in 1980. He called it Element 115, said the name of it, and then literally 20 plus some years later,
I found it.
They discovered it and added it to the periodic table. And the whole thing with this element was that it was it powered the reactor for these craft. And
Right.
it's like, how would he know, if he was so full of shit, how would he know about an element decades before
That didn't exist to us yet.
that didn't exist at all? Like,
Well,
how? That's
not-
the one thing that kills me about it. It's like, man, there's some parts of it that I'm just like, I don't know, man. He could just be making it up. It could be publicity. It's whatever.
It's like Tesla, though. I mean, look at
Yeah.
all the stuff he knew
Like,
about.
he's the father of the modern world almost. And gets no credit. But I don't know, man. It's really hard. That's just so concrete. Like, how would you know? I mean, it could be a complete chance. Like, oh yeah, there's this element 115. It just happens. Like,
Yeah.
but that's like
And then they
1 in a
could-
billion chance, man.
They could be trolling too and just, call it what he called it or
Yeah,
whatever. You
maybe.
know what I mean?
don't know. Well, I mean, it got his name changed to Moscovium because it was discovered in Russia.
No.
But it's like, huh?
Discovered in Russia.
No, it says unipentium or moscovium. It's a radioactive chemical element with atomic number 115. And it's just like, and see what's crazy, man, is they're in the public sphere, they're talking about how it could power like gravity warp drives and theoretical atomic mass, like stuff that like antimatter and stuff, like, or not antimatter, but like it could power anti-gravity, like it's has that property. There's some way that if you manipulate it for some reason that, or for whatever, I'm not, like I said, that learned in it, but it's like, why would they be talking about that? And I'm telling you, like, it adds up. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like,
I'm telling you, dude, you gotta watch the tinfoil hat one with the biblical, whatever it is. It's the guy's name. Stan Deo. He talks about how he worked for people doing propulsion technology and then anti-gravity, all kinds of crazy shit.
There was an interview I saw of this guy. He was like a colonel in the Air Force, and he was specifically in the R&D department, and he was talking about how they've literally got like 0 point energy, like energy from the vacuum, from nothing, literally free energy. And like he's gotten like he had like a bomb in his mailbox, and there's like a police report that you can look up about the bomb in his mailbox. Somebody shot him off. And that's another thing that happened with Bob. Like, there's a police report. He was driving on the freeway, and some dude, like some car came up and like forced him off the road and shot his tires, like shot his car.
Jesus Christ, man.
And there's just all this stuff, man, and like there's this, it's just really weird. It's hard to tell, but yeah. So I mean, I don't know. In my opinion, there's a lot of stuff in this story that's like, you can't really verify it officially, but it's like, man, I don't know. It wouldn't be that hard for them to erase that dude's identity, at least his educational identity.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. That's all you need to do.
It'd be a walk in the park.
Because in the society we live in, and the society that they've cultivated, it's, if you don't have this education, then you're not credible, basically.
You're only credible if certain people say you're credible.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And that, we won't get into it because we'll get flagged on this on YouTube, but that's pretty much the premise of today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What's the next one?
Well, we got MK Ultra, but we done kind of went into that a bit. And there's the Green Bank, West Virginia, Radio Silent Hill.
Well, Silent Hill. I thought it was Silent Hill.
No, it's not. It's not the same.
It's a completely different place. But it's this observatory in. I don't know if this is necessarily like conspiracy, but it's just. It's
very
really
strange.
It's a really weird, like, So
why? Like, when you hear about it, it's like, why?
Well, I mean, it makes I don't know. So Green Bank is a place in West Virginia, and they've got this observatory. And there's a 13,000 square mile area, which is like 3 or 4 counties.
It's quite large.
And you can't have, so there's no cell phone towers. You can't have cell phones. It's prosecutable. They can prosecute you, and you can get like fined and go to jail, possibly, for having radios in this area.
And of course, they say that people have it. There's supposed to be like no internet and stuff there, but it's getting to the point now to where people are moving there, and they've got
maybe not Wi-Fi, but like wired, maybe.
Yeah, right, maybe. But they're starting to get a little bit more lax on what they allow, because a lot of people, I can't remember what the disease or whatever the disorder's called, but it's like they have they're really sensitive to like
that's Silent Hill
waves and stuff. Well, these people move here too, because they had like cell phones, give them headaches and like electronics. Being around too many electronics like fucks with them.
Yeah, somehow. Electromagnetically sensitive.
So a lot of them people will move out there.
Yeah.
Because it's not allowed.
But they've got this giant observatory, and it like apparently they've discovered black holes. It's been open since 1958. They found black holes, radiation belts, gravitational waves. It's in this like this valley basically, and it's got these mountains, and it offers like a natural barrier against like background radiation, what they call like cosmic radiation. But on top of that, they don't have any. You can't have any cell phones. Like I said, it's a radio-free zone, and it's really odd. Like there's a lot of really weird stuff going on with it. I feel like it's just that's such a large area, and it's like, man, why wouldn't you just? There's got to be, and just in my opinion, this is just how my brain works. It's like, why wouldn't you go to a remote area where there's not a lot of people?
I mean, West Virginia's not that big. I mean,
and it's not like populated like New York, but at the same time, it's like, why would you have this in the middle of civilization and population?
Right.
Why not just go out to a remote area?
I mean, West Virginia's, a couple hours from D.C.
Yeah.
Roughly. I mean, if that.
What I'm getting at, though, is like, why would you put it in the middle of a bunch of people unless you were doing something? I feel like there's other stuff besides just observing.
Goes into that shooting the frequencies and the mind control thing.
It's like, man, who knows? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just me. I just feel like it's, I don't know, there might be some other ulterior motives going on with that. And it's really weird because they've got a lot of what they in this article calls them Doomsday Preppers. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I read that too.
Because it's like, like they can't be spied on and all that stuff. But it's like, no, bro, they know where you're at.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. They definitely know you're there. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like you have to have some kind of clearance almost to live there. Or something, you know what I mean? Like, they know you're there.
It's just, I don't know. There's not really like a whole lot on it other than it's just
odd.
Yeah.
It's just odd.
There's like a quote here where it says, people had like wireless speakers, and he barked at it and said, "We can make you get rid of your stuff. It's the law." So they can definitely they can prosecute you. And it's like, man, like, so why, like, again, for me, it's like, why would you not just go to a super remote area and just build it there?
I feel like, I don't know.
There's got to be other areas.
Out in the West, Montana.
Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe the temperature has something to do with it, but I doubt it.
Maybe.
Because there'd be less interference and less smog and less everything up there.
Yeah, right.
Like, why would you just build it there? That's my thing. Like, I don't know.
Why is it where it's at?
Just super suspect, man. It's like, I feel like there's some kind of like, not to get super digressed, but like, it reminds me of this. There's this game that I play called, Fallout.
Yeah.
And they've got these vaults, and where, like, the world was like getting wiped out by nuclear fallout and war. So these people went into these vaults for shelter. They paid a ton of money in this game, in this fictional universe, but aside to just offering shelter and protecting the people from nuclear, war and fallout, they were conducting experiments on these isolated populations.
Right.
And one of them was with white noise, like, background noise.
Mm-hmm.
And like, really, like, they were making them go crazy and trying to like do this and that with them. It's like, it just makes me think of that. Like, there's I don't know. It's
just weird, man. It leaves a lot of question to it.
Yeah, like,
a lot of,
that, and it's prosecutable.
Speculation.
Like, you're prosecuting people. Like, you can literally get arrested.
I think I might have read the same article you're reading, but there was a story in it about there was a guy back, like the sheriff of one of the towns there. He was like really hardcore about prosecuting and protecting it, all that back in the day, but like modern days, within like the last 10 to 15 years, it's become more lax.
Yeah.
On like, yeah, you got a radio hooked up. We're not about to give you jail time for it, but you need to turn it off.
Yeah.
Or there's like maybe a time or something now. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read it.
That's probably what it is. It's like a curfew for radio frequencies. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's just, I don't know, man.
That's what I'm reading right now.
It's just weird. And it would be cool to find. If you know more information on it, let us know.
And I don't. It says
Most
like it could
definitely.
like it's also maybe a cover up for like missile silos, which is likely because I know there's
Yeah.
they definitely got some in West
Or
Virginia.
what I was thinking, which is way, way deep and far out there. But like you were talking about how they discovered, black holes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what if it's a port, so to speak, for I don't know, interdimensional. It's another thing too. It's like UFOs
Or communication at the very least.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's
just a front.
because ET is still being. Is it from space? Is it interdimensional? Is it another reality? Is it simulation? Blah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I guess this isn't one of the juiciest topics because it's just like
Because
there's not a whole lot to it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's literally but that's what's so crazy about it.
It leaves the mind to wonder.
Yeah, that's why I like
lot.
it because it's like there could be so much stuff. And like I said, I don't know.
We like
my mind immediately goes to like what kind of shady shit are they up to? I hate that I'm that way, but there's a reason. You just look around in the world and do a tiny bit of research on your own, and I don't know, you get more and more into that. It's like the blissfully ignorant, thing. It's like, oh, I don't know what's going on now. I'm happy, and then you start looking into stuff and you realize it, and it's like, man, I'm gonna have this mindset forever.
That was one of my first wake up calls too, as far as being where I'm at now with it all, was they just want you to be dumb and happy.
Yeah.
Which at its face value doesn't sound bad.
If that's how you want to exist, man, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's why they give you the Xboxes in front of your face, and they put the Facebooks out there because they just want you to be dumb, distracted, fat, and happy. It's all they care about.
Dependent.
Yeah, so they can.
While at the same time, blissfully ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, of why they want you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's probably going to about wrap it up for this episode.
Trying to think of any other ones, but that's pretty much all I prepped for.
Yeah, and we're going to get... All of these are going to get a lot deeper. There's 1.5 million other secret, crazy government experiments and research and stuff that we didn't talk about, but we will. And, like we said, let us know in the comments if you have any suggestions on anything you want to hear about, any of the things we talked about today. If you know anything we left out or something that maybe we said that wasn't quite true or you've heard, let us know.
Yeah,
we want to talk to you guys. I said,
any topic is, unless it's something super, super controversial or, and even then I kind of want to talk about it. Everything is worth talking about, dude.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get more into, maybe current event type of stuff, but we're not really going to do that on YouTube.
It's just really hard to touch that stuff without being
that'll be more on
flagged.
We're still getting all of our Rockfin and all of our actual YouTube or our podcast hosting stuff. We're still trying to get it all worked out to get out more stuff that we can't really talk about on YouTube.
That, and we've got a lot of stuff going on in our personal life right now. So it's been here lately. It's been hard to record and just make content, but kind of moving past it. At least I know I am. I've got most of my obstacles in my life starting to knock them out, but it's going to pick up. Just takes a little time to get started, but really, I guess the biggest obstacle for us is equipment. We've got these mics and stuff, but we're still using a phone to record. That's the next thing. But once we get that, it's just a couple more hurdles, and the content's going to start zooming, man.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can't wait to get it going, you know what I mean? I'm hype every time. I'm yes, we're going to get to record.
Yeah, dude, I love it. It puts me in such a good mood. I've been
sitting here trying to think of doing shorts because I want to get stuff out. But it's kind of hard to think of stuff to do in a short video sometimes. So I don't know. Which I'm brainstorming a few things.
I feel like I don't know. I'm always going to, my favorite will always be these podcasts where I can just sit there and
Oh,
speculate
yeah,
and just talk about it and rant and rave. Cause
it's not as
it's like we talked about that other day, man. There's so much stuff that connects, and it's just like this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, and you can call me crazy or whatever, but you know.
Yeah, it's what we like. So
I don't know.
And I feel like if you're here listening to us, you're probably on the same page.
You either feel sorry for us or you're actually into this stuff. You know.
Yeah. So I guess that's gonna wrap it up today, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far,
made it
you're
to
awesome.
the end here. Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
We love you.
Stay tuned. Follow us. I'll link all of our Facebooks, Twitters, and all that stuff down in the comments. So I guess until next time, you guys take it easy.
Peace, man.